is Dr. Suman Iyer. She completed her master's in 1976 and doctorate in 1981 from the University of Mumbai. And the topic was semiconductor aspects of implanted silicon. She is a consultant scientist at Advanced Material Consultants, which is abbreviated as ADMATS. Now, it started in late 90s and it was devoted to the research and commercial aspects of diamond and diamond-like carbon coatings. Now, she utilized her modeling and simulation research experience, which she gained at various institutes like NAL and JNCSR and ISC and many more, and which also resulted in two patents. And she has held various visiting appointments at ENEA, Italy, and University of Oregon, USA. And she is also a life member of professional bodies like Indian Physics Association, Materials Research Society of India, Tribology Society of India, with active participation in the working of Indian Ceramics Society, Karnataka chapter. And well, there's much more to add, but due to time constraint, I'm just keeping it to it. And today she will be discussing about the basic aspects related to the chemical vapor deposition (CVD) technique for diamond synthesis and its various applications. And now, before she starts, I would like to request all the participants to please keep their.
Hello.
I think you have lost connection. I'll invite Madam to make her presentation. You have a presentation, Madam?
Yes. Yeah.
You can share the screen.
Wait for him to join, or
you can start sharing the screen. I'm sure he'll do that.
Sure. Thank you for your kind words. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
I have no words to express how happy I feel to join this way in the Golden Jubilee year celebration of our department. And let me convey my heartfelt thanks to the head of the department, Professor Anuradha Mishra, for giving me this opportunity. Also to her team, which is putting up this lecture series. Now today's is the 26th lecture. Now this is a very commendable achievement, and let me congratulate all of you. Today's guest of honor, Professor B.A. Marora, has had a special position in my professional life. We research students at UDP in the 70s enjoyed solid support from the solid state electronics group of TIFR, as he has already told about the students who went there for guidance and for every kind of support. I also remember Shekhar, Narsade, Murawala, Premchandra doing a part of their experimental work, working with Professor Arora and others in the group. Although I carried out my experimental work in UDP, in the absence of guidance in semiconductor physics at UDP, every term I went to Professor Arora to report the ongoing work, the new ideas, and finally also for getting the thesis checked. Now this work reporting has continued for the last 40 years, even after coming to Bengaluru. The numerical calculations work reported in my thesis, they were also based on the computations using the TIFR computer. I remember Mayank Vahia helping me with similar kind of those using that computer later. And so Professor Arora, we all thank you, your group, your institute with much gratitude. Shall I share the? Please excuse me for a minute. Excuse me for a minute.
Yes, we can see your slides, ma'am.
Now you can see me. Thank you for your patience. From 1988 onwards, for the next 10 years, I worked very intently on this material, CVD diamond. In fact, that would be an understatement. I had got totally carried away by this material and was researching it with cheerful passion. Here in this GAN series talk, I wish to share that excitement with my seniors with gratitude and with students to nudge them to fast forward their current work, exciting work that they must be doing. I think currently they are preparing for the exams. So all the best to all of you students. This is the outline of my talk. Excuse me, the gratitude, showing the gratitude, sharing the memories, I will be doing it at the end. Given my talkative nature, and I thought that is safer to do. So first let me finish the talk and then I'll be going to that. So we'll begin by seeing how my path from UDP, how the path finally went to CVT Diamond. After seeing that, we'll be refreshing our ideas about diamond, differentiating CVD diamond films from diamond-like carbon, and seeing the historical development, seeing the diamond synthesis in general in historical perspective, and also the CVD diamond. Next, we'll be seeing some basic points, basic important points related to CVD diamond deposition and characterization. Diamond with its superlative properties and many combinations of which they lead to remarkable potential applications. We'll go through these applications. Many of them have been well known. Now, what difference CVD diamond made to this area, we'll be seeing that. At this point, ADMATS, which is actually the name of my professional practice. From 1998 onwards, I have been working as a consultant scientist with this name, Advanced Materials Consultant, in short, ADMATS. This was to continue working on diamond and diamond-like carbon coatings and trying to be involved in putting those coatings on some product. You'll be hearing a little about that here. Then we move on to, now all this, whatever I would be talking about would be from the 90s when the CVD diamond, it just, excuse me, emerged as a new material in the early 80s, and there was a real buzz about it in the 90s, and that is what we'll be seeing there first, and then we'll be moving to here, coming to diamond technology. We'll be moving to today, 2021, and I have actually looked at CVD diamond related material after many years, and I was very happy to see the progress that has happened in this area around the world. Even in India, many groups, they are doing very good experimental work. I mean, it is at a very good academic level, and we'll be looking at some aspects of technology development. Okay. So as an electronics student, that was my elective for MSc. I was quite fascinated by physics of semiconductor devices, and for PhD, when iron was implanted in silicon, Professor MC Doshi, he was my guide. Initially, I started the work with Dr. H.C. Padi, who suggested me to use the cryostat that we had and making Hall measurements. And uh, later, I registered with Professor MC Doshi, and when he asked me to use iron as a, I'm sure, okay, let me cut short that story. I looked at iron in silicon as as a deep level defect, and computed the Fermi level movement with the temperature, that kind of calculations, because being a deep level defect, there is a change in the carrier concentration throughout the temperature, and its dependence on the concentration of iron, etc. So what I'm conveying is that working with the nuclear physicists, here I have said open-minded seniors supporting juniors' dreams. I mean, Professor Joshi didn't mind me studying the semiconductor aspects, and I'm really indebted to such seniors. So after 81, after finishing the PhD, when I went and I joined in the semiconductor physics lab of physics department of IISc. There was a program on studying deep level defects in gallium arsenide and other materials, and using DLTS, the deep level transient spectroscopy technique. And later, for my CSIR RE-ship, I chose amorphous silicon. I took a break here when my daughter was born, and I took amorphous hydrogenated silicon. And the young colleague at Materials Research Center, who is to prepare amorphous hydrogenated silicon using the MRC, RF sputtering unit, he was also making hydrogenated carbon coatings, amorphous hydrogenated carbon coatings, and I took it to physics department to uh, use electrical resistance of the coating for optimizing, to help him optimize the preparation conditions, and soon we could he could prepare the carbon coatings, which could be called as diamond-like carbon coating, high electrical resistance. It was very hard, IR transparent, smooth like Teflon like. And this is how, and the same colleague, Dr. Harshavardhan, he also made using combustion flame diamond microcrystals that time. And that is how my interest in this, I mean, this diamond and diamond like carbon, it became my area coming from the silicon. I mean, diamond holds promise as electronic applications, as we'll see. And it was, and I pursued that for, I pursued with my seniors who didn't have this as their prime material of interest. But seniors like Professor Vikram Kumar, Professor C.N.R. Rao, and at NAL, Dr. A.C. Raghuram, and Dr. R.M. Malya in MRC. So they all made it possible for me to continuously work on this material, setting up hot filament CVD setup. At JNC, I was working for 5 years and set up hot filament CVD, then microwave plasma CVD. By both methods, we got diamond coatings. I'll be presently showing you some of those results. And this is how my my strong interest in diamond or strong association with diamond and DLC it began, which has in some sense continued. So now let's begin by seeing these are the well-known aspects. We all know that graphite and diamond are the two crystalline allotropes of carbon. Graphite with sp2 type bonding, one carbon connected to three in forming an hexagonal structure, planar structure, and between the planes it is loosely bonded by van der Waals. Now, and the electron getting donated to the whole crystal, and this is how graphite is highly conducting, electrically conducting, whereas diamond with its sp3 type bonds, for equivalent, all for equivalent tetrahedral structure, and this is the kind of unit it has, and with its small size and very strong covalent bond and such a tightly knit structure, it has its very high hardness, chemical inertness, and so on. All its super excellent properties come out of this. And here we have, this is a crystalline diamond. Now to know about what is this DLC, let us consider we also have generally have amorphous carbon, all sp2 type bonded, amorphous hydrogenated carbon, where the sp3 percentage is very small, and diamond like carbon sp2 plus sp3 with very large up to 70-80% is tetrahedral kind of bonding, and there is something called as tetrahedral carbon where it is an amorphous coating, but all sp3 type of bonded. The short range order is there, and because of hydrogen here, the difference is beyond some 300, the hydrogen leaves the network, changing the property. That's so on. Now, this is a historical perspective. We have three periods here. Before 1955, the diamond was only mined. It was used as a gemstone, or the fine grit was used for, it's called bolt, for industrial tools. That was common, which continues even now. Here it is. Now, in 1955, this high pressure, high temperature method, I think here I cannot, okay, just a minute. So you can see on the right side, the phase diagram for carbon. Near the room pressure and temperature, diamond is a metastable phase and graphite is the stable phase. Now, for diamond to be the stable phase, the pressure that has to be applied is in hundreds of kilobars. One bar is the atmospheric pressure is 1 bar, and it is such a high pressure and high temperature also, unless some strategy is used. So this is a diamond synthesis in thermal equilibrium way. If you do the molten graphite, I mean, it will be crystallized to diamond. Now in 1955, General Electric, they came up with a commercially viable method using some nickel catalyst. So using the nickel type of catalyst, which brought down the temperature to 1700. So that is a manageable temperature. And with that, there was a kind of a revolution in diamond synthesis. Even a diamond is so hard that even a small size grit is good enough, and uh, so many, like as I said, even today, synthetic diamond, it is some 4 times that per year it is made and used, and they say there is no engineering material which has not come in contact with the diamond at some stage or the other. Okay. Now let's see here. Diamond is the metastable phase and graphite is the stable phase. Now this is going to play a critical role in the CVD deposition, and this is the historical perspective of developments in CVD diamond. Now CVD diamond is a low pressure synthesis under conditions where it's metastable, and before 1982. In principle, it was shown by Eversole from Union Carbide that it is feasible to have diamond growing under this condition, and the efforts to synthesize diamond, this metastable diamond, continued, and in 1968 at Case Western University, Professor Angles, he first time showed that the atomic hydrogen, it etches away graphite preferentially. Almost the etch rate is 100 times that of for diamond, and that is what finally here in 82. Now that is what again it showed in principle that atomic hydrogen can play a role, but experimentally to really have diamond synthesis or for any commercial application to have it with enough growth rate, there had to be adequate atomic hydrogen concentration. And in Japan in 1982, this group at NIRIM, they used different gas activation techniques like microwave, DC discharge, hot filament at 2000, and this gas activation techniques. As I remember, I had looked at the pyrolysis data of atomic hydrogen dissociation, and if you see around 800, not here, I'm just sharing with you that around 800 centigrade, there is some atomic hydrogen somewhat detectable which is produced, and around 1800 there is about 1% in the hydrogen, there is about 1% atomic hydrogen. That percentage by, okay, the relevance is this way. I think next slide I'll. In hot filament system, the effective temperature is 2000 centigrade. In microwave plasma, it is 2200 centigrade. Combustion flame, the oxyacetylene flame, it is around 3000. And the arc plasma, what we call as thermal plasma, it is much higher, more than 3500 centigrade. And the atomic hydrogen dissociation efficiency, it goes up, it only picks up around 2000, and that is how the CVD diamond the synthesis had to wait till you start using this kind of temperature reaction zones with this type of temperatures. Now, so I've been saying CVD, so for completeness, let us go over what is PVD, CVD, and so CVD is chemical vapor deposition method, PVD is physical vapor deposition method. Now, like in evaporation, okay. Let me say that vapor deposition, when we go through smoke, some very smoky region or something, we come out with that smoky smell and all. So there is vapor deposition in that case. But the point is that soon, after some time, that vapor will get dissolved. Something which has just got absorbed, I mean, not really embedded in it, it will get dissolved. On the other hand, when we say vapor deposition system, so that is providing enough the vapor the which is dissociated vapor is enough energetic to get embedded in the substrate, and in physical vapor deposition, the precursor species is dislodged from externally by some external, like say sputtering, e-beam evaporation, and it is directed to the substrate. So we call it line of sight deposition. On the other hand, in chemical vapor deposition, the gas mixture, the precursor gas mixture is the reaction zone which is energized by using either plasma or like hot filament, or that is very close to the substrate, and a number of chemical reactions happening in that reaction zone, and various kind of at the substrate surface there is adsorption, desorption, and addition of those. This is will soon see it in more detail. So as far as the CVD diamond deposition is concerned, the precursor gas mixture is methane plus hydrogen. The methane part has to be less than 4% for it to be diamond phase. Gas pressure is below room pressure. Room pressure is 760 torr, and this will be around 100 torr, and the substrate temperature has to be in this region. So let us see. We said that atomic hydrogen played a very critical role. Let us see in some detail. So for the growth of diamond in this metastable phase conditions, as the active precursor mixture is, the substrate is exposed to that, and the time proceeds, at initial time, what we call as the nucleation phase, we can see that initially it will be, now these maroon ones are sp2 bonded carbon, the yellow ones are sp3 type bonded carbon. What are these small circles? I'll come to that later. So initially the surface will be covered by sp2 type bonding, because that is the more energetically more favored situation. But because of the atomic hydrogen being around, slowly those type of carbons are etched out, leaving behind the little diamond sp3 type bonded carbon, which soon coalesces, forms islands, and as time proceeds, there is a continuous film of sp3 bonded carbon on the substrate, and we call this as the incubation period being over. So in the nucleation stage, we have the transport of precursor gas mixture to the substrate, gas phase reactions in the energized reaction zone, adsorption, desorption, and there is a kinetics involved in all this. The flux, the rate of flux of all these species on the substrate, and the leading chemical reaction in that. And as we saw, after nucleation formation, island formation, merging of islands, we have a continuous layer formation, and this is the interfacial layer formed. Now I have added here adhering. Now later we'll see sorry. So later we'll see that when we want the incubation period to be small for any application, the diamond coating, it should be well adhering, and that region should not be very wide, etc. Okay, so we have it here. Now, okay, for history, like a historical, this is an event, time event. So here what I have done is I have also mined my transparencies. See, 25 years back, when I worked on this material, there was no Word and PowerPoint, and there were no PPTs, and one presented using these transparencies. And here, this transparency on this here, the different strategies adopted for nucleation enhancement. I thought after we have looked at the nucleation phase, okay, I will shortly, briefly, will go through this. Okay, I had I had said that those small circles which are there. So generally for CVD diamond coating to grow effectively on silicon substrate, a heterogeneous non-diamond substrate. So the what is a mandatory step is to abrade that surface with diamond paste. And that abrasion will be creating surface steps as well as some kind of a nano diamond seeding can be there, which is shown here. And then if silicon is heavily diamond polished, the nucleation density will be more, incubation period will be less. There is another way of increasing the nucleation density is to apply negative bias, and that was also seen to improve the reduce the incubation period, the time taken for all diamond interface layers to have formed. And okay, this we can come to that later. I think because of time limit, we can skip this. So essentially, no, sorry. So after the nucleation phase, there is the growth phase. Here again, the hydrogen will be playing another type of role, and the surface chemistry, the type of radicals which can get bonded, and hydrogen creates the suitable kind of conditions for that. And in fact, the number of F sites on diamond surface with dangling bonds, because to the dangling bond, the CH3, the precursor radical, which gets attached and the diamond growth happens, the diamond type of structure is built. So this presence of dangling bonds is decided by the dynamic equilibrium between abstraction of H and H addition reactions, and it is dependent on the atomic hydrogen at the surface Hs and also the surface temperature Ts. Now, yeah, all this is is simulated, and to understand which is the growth species, and yeah, that is the nice part of science. Around the world, like different people with different expertise, they apply their techniques to unravel the aspects unknown about the new material. Okay, here hydrogen dissociation efficiency of the reaction zone is the key factor for diamond growth rate, CVD diamond growth rate. And so we are here again. As I said, the hydrogen dissociation depends on the effective temperature. And here is in this plot, we can see that for thermal decomposition, this is linear growth rate, micron per hour versus temperature of the CVD gas phase. Near at low temperature starting from 0.01, no activation used. And when you use glow discharge type microwave plasma, the growth rate has gone to 1 micron. With oxyacetylene flame, it goes to 10 micron per hour. And with thermal plasma, DC plasma, it can reach to 100 micron per hour. Now, for commercialization of CVD diamond, now these growth rates are important, but it depends on the application. For some applications, what is important is how good is the diamond structure, how well it has, I mean, the application cannot entertain any impurity or structural defects and all that. So I see that currently where the CVD diamond has been developed, put on many products and all, generally the growth rate that they use is between this 1 and 10 micron. Okay. So we have been talking about hot filament also. These systems have been shown here, the schematic. The tungsten filament at 2000. Here the microwave plasma. In microwave, there are two ways that the microwaves are brought to the reaction zone. It can be either single mode type waveguide all along, or various groups around the world. Actually, they have developed different, depending on their expertise, they have developed different techniques for applying microwave energy to the reaction zone, and that actually forms the basis for success of all these companies. Or it depends on that. And because you want the CVD diamond growth to be happening uniformly over large area, the structure has to be pure structure, etc. So one has to have a good control over the gas mixture, its activity, how it is activated, the control over the temperature, how, and all that plays a very critical role. Why the microwave plasma is one of the leading techniques is because once you can control the plasma, the CVD diamond that is grown with that, when there is no contamination. In the hot filament case, there is a contamination from the tungsten filament. In the oxyacetylene torch, you are doing it in the atmospheric pressure, there is bound to be some contamination from there, etc. In plasma jet also, you are setting an arc here. Whereas in the microwave plasma case, the microwave, the reaction zone is free of any impurity, and that is the reason behind its success. Okay, so we come to the diamond, CVD diamond characterization. We should make a note that under unoptimized process parameter condition, CVD diamond film contains, along with diamond, it will also have other carbon phases. like amorphous carbon, graphitic carbon, and XRD can indicate whether diamond is formed or other crystalline phases are formed. Some indication of the amorphous carbon, but not really. So SEM will show the D-fill morphology, the expected morphology, like there are typical facets of diamond, well-known facets. They can be seen, the size of the grain, etc. But how to know whether there is an amorphous carbon in the coating, to what extent it is there? And so Raman spectroscopy, in this case, there are well separated lines corresponding to amorphous carbon, graphite, microcrystalline graphite, diamond. They are all very well separated. Here we see 1332 diamond line, this hump here 1542. So that is a merging of the graphitic or amorphous. The amorphous carbon can have different kind of structures and different. So the point is, finally, when you get only diamond line, one could safely say that the other carbon phases are really negligible. The reason is the cross section. The Raman cross section for graphitic lines is 100 times higher than that for the diamond line. So graphite one line is at of microcrystalline graphite lies close to this 1332, which is at 1350. And so this used to be emphasized that if you get only 1332 line, then the graphite, that 1350 is not there. That means graphitic carbon is less than 1%. So here I take the opportunity to present some of my work, not some, my work on CVD diamond carried out at Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research. This nucleation stage, we have seen it in detail, and we know that it is mandatory to abrade substrate surfaces by diamond paste to get diamond deposition. So this was carried out in 95, 96. So the question remained that time, that by abrading with diamond, whether the substrate scratching, the surface steps that are created, do they enhance the nucleation, or there is some residual diamond microcrystals, and they act as seeds for the growth. So that was a kind of a open question. Now after getting good diamond phase coating using hot filament CVD, here what I have shown is, what we carried out was porous silicon, preparing porous silicon. So we have silicon surface, which has a lot of surface steps, you could say. So diamond deposition on unscratched, only porous silicon, then diamond deposition under same condition on C silicon but not abraded with diamond, and here C silicon abraded with diamond. So these three types of samples were kept, and generally our full deposition cycle used to be of say 6-7 hours. But for this experiment, to study the nucleation stage, study these surfaces at nucleation stage, so we took out the samples after, I think, 1 to 2 hours, and here we can see on porous silicon there is diamond nucleation. And on C silicon also there are this well faceted diamonds, and Also, we can see small diamond, very small diamond microcrystal. But on deabraded sea silicon, we can see that there is all these are now well faceted, and these are separate here. The faceted diamonds are separate here. Here we could see almost faceted diamond microcrystals continuously being present there. So the conclusion, now these are the corresponding XRD, SCM of some. Okay. So the conclusion was that the incubation time, the time for continuous D film formation was least for sea silicon abraded with diamond powder. So this is one of our publications, thin solid films. Now let me add, as you can see, I should be, I feel really thankful for getting this opportunity, because after many years, I looked at the literature more enthusiastically, and or so now what I'm finding that now there is a, okay, in Europe, the Bristol University, the chemistry department of that, they have a very big group working on this, and they have come up with a diamond micro or nano seeding spray, that kind of arrangement. So using, I mean, we used to sort of hesitantly say whether there are diamond remains or not, etc. By now, it is very well established, and there are techniques for seeding, because we used to be only abrading with diamond paste and removing, cleaning, all that. But there are better techniques developed. So this is how the field proceeds, in a very positive direction, and it is very pleasing to see that. That was using hot filament CVD. Here we had a setup for microwave plasma CVD. This was a microwave power supply, which was given by, which was made by a company in Pune. Now, why I'm saying is, when a ready microwave setup, if we were to import, that was to cost 1 crore. Instead, which was not really possible. So instead, this Pune company, it was making this microwave power supply with the single, that though this type of application of microwave with a cross quartz tube and the reaction being carried out here, it used to be called as Japanese arrangement, because initially it was used there. So this is a more easier kind of setup. This is the single mode waveguide. As okay, let me add. So in a single mode, the microwave where the wavelength is of the order of 12.5 centimeter in vacuum, so which is of the order of the systems involved. So for, we all know that for taking microwave energy from one point to the other, it has to be done with some specifically designed, specifically sized waveguides. They are called as the energy. The microwave cannot be sent on cables, like, or like RF. This is the way it is done at lower gigahertz. No. So in this arrangement, the other end of the single mode waveguide, there is a plunger whose position can be brought in and out to have the interference pattern in such a way that there is a maximum. See, in this kind of waveguide, on the broad side, we can make a hole. It doesn't affect the propagation of the waves. So making hole on the broader side to insert a quartz tube of say 7-8 centimeters. And this was again some, to cut short, sometimes I will be saying this with fondness because of many memories. I mean, this power supply came for 1 lakh, and then there was a okay, in microwave we cannot just put any material metallic. We all know because of the microwave ovens now. But in the institute, in the IPC department, there was a glass blower. So he would work on quartz tube, and give anything like whatever shape you wanted and all. And okay, let me stop this description by thanking that glass blower who made it possible, to keep silicon wafer here at whichever way we wanted. And for temperature measurement, there was a thermocouple used. I mean, there was a ceramic sieve used here, but actually the thermocouple tip was directly touching the. Now in this we can see the quartz holder, the silicon substrate, and this is the tungsten. I think that tungsten tip. Okay, I think what we started doing was initially we tried using the thermocouple tip. Now the point what I am trying to want to convey is that we made do this arrangement to work. The power that this power supply could give to get the plasma was not adequate to get that 700 to 900 temperature here on the for the silicon. But incidentally, we had put a thermocouple to measure the temperature, which we noted was concentrating the plasma. There is to be a kind of a resonance at some depth of this thermocouple, and with that concentrated plasma ball, a very small plasma ball above the silicon, one could get this temperature to 700, 900. There was an optical pyrometer, thanks to Professor Shiv Shankar from MRC, who had lent that, and we could measure the temperature, and this way we could get diamond deposition. And but we can see that getting a continuous well-faceted film was not possible. But there was an interesting nucleation enhancement. At the central region, there was a focusing of the field, and actually this has, I would say, this had remained not well understood. What is the situation there, even going to ECE department and all that. But the interesting part why I'm dwelling on this is, now after many years, last 1 or 2 years, I'm working on measurement of temperature in multi-mode microwave system using thermocouple, which is quite a practical, easy way to do. But we know that there is a focusing of the field, etc. And with that, now the additional feel for what is happening, I wish to go back to understand this better. This is while setting up hot filaments and getting diamonds by hot filament CVD and microwave plasma CVD. I had also worked on this blue luminescence, band A emission in diamond, and you can see the seniors help, Professor Arora, whenever I was this, okay, the band A emission, what is called as band A emission in diamond. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Sorry, because, okay. So this band A emission in diamond, it is a green-blue luminescence band. Interesting part is it is observed in natural high pressure, high temperature, the synthetic diamond synthesized that way, and even in CVD diamond. So it is observed in all these types of diamond. It is observed, not used to be, it is observed under photo, E-beam, X-ray excitation. And earlier it was associated, with donor acceptor pair, boron and either nitrogen acting as a donor or, yeah, that was the way it was explained. And going through the literature and reviewing all that was kind of, there was a lot of data of every kind. Going through that, it was concluded that donor acceptor pair model is not really applicable when, for example, in undoped diamond, also this emission is seen, where there is no boron dopant, and so on. So instead, I mean, it looked as if it could be, but it was constantly there in all types of diamonds. So we tried to associate it with some structural defect, like dislocation of that kind. And there was a standard model for analyzing diminutions using what is called vibronic model. Means there is a participation of phonon in the process, and using some standard model equations, what we carried out was simulating this band A emission with different phonon density distribution. Now I must add, here we see, I mean, thanks to Professor Anand Krishna and also to Professor Chandrasekhar. Now the role of Professor Chandrasekhar from IPC department was to, they used to study the molecules, you know, his calculations used to be on molecules and so small size defects and all. So he could assess the association of such phonon distribution with dislocation type of defect in diamond, and we could simulate with the same phonon, this g omega by omega, using the same distribution, we could fit with this green blue emission data, but for different types of diamond. That means diamond which this one is prepared by combustion technique. There was another fitting also done where it is by some other technique, but with the same phonon. So one could say that it is possible that these observed features can be said to be consistent with this new model. There were some points which were open, you know. We had to add this near here, some Lorentzian component. Now whose origin, it needed some further attention, etc. And this is a publication in Physical B. And I should thank Professor Arora once again. Whenever I used to be in Bombay about this donor acceptor pair model not being applicable, I used to be discussing with him. And so, okay. I attended this Enrico Fermi School at Varena held in 1996. Now, as many of you might be knowing, the Enrico Fermi School, here the experts around the world in that area, they almost stay there for 15 days. Now this school is for 15 days, and the experts also who give, like, they also stay, so there is a good, you know, one can interact with them. And they had kept 5 slots for participants also to present if they wanted, and I took this opportunity and presented this work that I showed as diamond and DLC film, Bangalore report. I think I wish to thank here at this point, in addition to all the seniors I mentioned, that even Professor M.C. Joshi, because the experimental labs that we had in university, they gave us, I mean, they may not be the latest experiments, but they gave us enough training to carry out experiments with some good goals, see them through, analyze the results. And I think that is, it was very satisfying to be attending this for me school. By the way, these are all the leading experts. J.C. Angus that I mentioned, showing that atomic hydrogen etches away graphitic and show diamond coating is possible is here, and all others. Okay. So we move on to the applications of diamond. These are the diamond properties. We can see they are exceptional hardness, chemical inertness, so on. They are quite well known. There is biological compatibility, highly insulating, but can be made semiconducting, B-type. There is negative electron affinity. So, and when they come, okay, firstly, for any property, when you compare the diamond property value with the competing material, the value of the competing material, diamond really is better in all of them. And that was the exciting part with the CVD diamond emerging. Now we'll see here. Just let me add that when these properties they are considered in combinations, they make very different kinds of applications possible. With the emergence of, okay, because of lack of time, and I think these are quite well known. So what is new about CVD diamond? Applying CVD diamond. So for that, this is just a review once again, that before 1955, this was a gem diamond. Here I'm showing De Beers diamond ring. Before 82, this is the what they call as PCD tool. Diamond grit used to be embedded in some with many metal. It used to be sintered with many metals and coated this way. With CVD diamond, not only this kind of coating such tools is possible, but with high growth rates and with the deposition systems developing year by year, even a self-standing thin wafer was possible even in the late 90s and all, with thickness micron to mm, large area, and these kind of applications. Now we'll see in detail one by one a couple of them. For example, CVD coated cutting tools. One would call this a passive application, and it's a value addition. I mean, without CVD diamond, as we saw, that there were machine tools, it's a world by itself. They were fully in use. So CVD diamond was adding value to the way the cutting could be, the shaping could be done, and so on, and it would bring down the cost and so on. But even to do that, now here, if there are like students, I don't know, I have chosen this format to bring in the point that any new material and its potential application, there will be useful properties of that new material. But for it to be really, the application to be really operative in the field for the total end use development, there are always challenges and which need to be solved. For example, now CVD diamond coating on tungsten. These are called cutting tool inserts. Generally, they are of tungsten carbide. Now, sorry, first let me put clearly now from this company, this cutting tool insert, you can see small black tip on each of them. There is a small, the tip, there is a PCD diamond brazed there, or nowadays even the CVD diamond can be brazed there. So if it is this kind of brazing, it is a different matter. But same tungsten carbide cutting tool insert, if you want to coat it. By the way, I must first start by saying that diamond interacts with iron, so ferociously or so heavily that one cannot use diamond coated tools for cutting ferrous materials. So it is suitable for non-ferrous materials only, like aluminum, silicon alloy, or tungsten carbide, other ceramics, or sometimes the material may not be that hard, but it is inhomogeneous. For example, in wood, the grains are very inhomogeneously the material is there, and to get a good cut diamond which can really cut it sharp, it gives a totally better performance. And that is one of the other thing is in granite, like we know that stones like granite, all kinds, so they have very inhomogeneous kind of distribution of the material, and in stone of course it is very difficult to cut. So diamond, what they do is they make rectangular. Just to give an idea about this, feel for appreciating now what problems can arise and all that. So let me add. So generally, the PCD, polycrystalline diamond, what used to be called as PCD, polycrystalline diamond, it continues to be called as that. That used to be, as I said, the grit sintered with all metal matrix. Now, with that material, they used to make rectangular segments, which would be braced to say 1 meter saw blade. Now, the reason I like to bring in this point is that last 15 years we have seen a kind of a revelation all over in everywhere. The different types of granite is being used, and different types of tiles. All that is possible because of the use, the development in the PCD tools. Coming back to the CVD diamond, now if you want to deposit CVD diamond on tungsten carbide inserts for improving its life, tool life, then the problem, if it is, you cannot quote steel, that is out, not outright. Okay, on tungsten carbide, generally we have cobalt for improving its performance. There is a addition of some percentage of cobalt, and which leaches out, and getting a good interfacial adhesion of CVD diamond on both steel and tungsten carbide with cobalt is difficult, is a big problem. And there is also a difficulty in getting continuous nucleation of diamond, and the solution strategies, what we saw in that transparency, is incorporation of intermediate layers. Like we can use niobium, tungsten, titanium carbide, silicon carbide, thin layers on tungsten carbide tool insert or on the steel insert. And there is a particular, so this is treated, this is a pre-deposition treatment of the substrate tool, which provides a buffer layer, prevents carbon diffusion. And also, why have so many types of interface materials? I mean, why? Because depending on the tool material, its size and all, to tailor the interfacial, the stress in the interfacial layer one can depend, one can choose a suitable material and its thickness. And I think Dr. Umesh Matre, he has talked, he has put up a company with PVD and what we call a job coating shop, like that type, and all these aspects he had covered that time. Okay, sure. Let me go fast through this. So here is a comparison of, this is in 90s. Now the whole thing has changed. Performance comparison of CVD diamond tool with HPHT Sumi crystal. Now suddenly we'll see let me say that before 1982, or rather till recently, I mean, in 90s, there were only two companies using that high pressure, high temperature method. Other than General Electric, Sumitomo Electric in Japan had established a very good market also. Now here, I was very happy to see while looking through the literature that there is a very good review written by some youngster in IIT Bombay from the chemical engineering department. Sorry, I mean, I didn't have time to add it here. On the, on this synthesis using high pressure, high temperature, and all the latest developments are also covered in that. For some of the applications, as we go, we will use the seed crystal, which is prepared by the high pressure, high temperature, or some. So they are not out of business or nothing like that. I mean, so we have to really discern the material requirement and use accordingly. Okay. 6. Huh? Sorry, hello?
Yeah.
Hello? Huh. Yeah. So I think I have to really go fast through this. And so the next, so a similar way, what I'm not really trying to convey all the applications, but to bring out that every application will have some challenges and some strategies to be adopted. For example, thermal management. Diamond with its highest thermal conductivity in all the materials, it is attractive to use it as a what we call thermal spreader. So here the semiconductor laser diode, which crucially depends on the its temperature really being stably there. So this diamond heat sink, it takes away heat. So it is not a heat sink, but it spreads the heat, passes it on to the copper. Now for it to be effectively working, what has to happen is the contact between the device and this diamond surface and also the other side. They have to be, it has to be really perfectly flat. I remember a number 0.1 micron per mm, that kind of thing. And slowly over the years, techniques have got developed to polish. Otherwise, we use diamond to polish all other materials. So how to get a good surface finish on diamond? So that was a problem a few decades back. So all that is solved, and now the thermal conductivity value that we see here, say 18 to 20 watt per centimeter per K, we will not get it in CVD diamond unless, I think the next slide has it. See, in general, the CVD diamond growth is this way. I have shown here in cross section on the right side. The grains grow outward this way. It's a columnar kind of growth, and you won't get high thermal conductivity unless really sufficiently high size, I mean wide grains are not there. Also the other point is the source, the carbon source, this 13C isotope. of carbon as an impurity, it totally changes the thermal conductivity. It brings it down. This is the top curve is for 0.1% and the below is for the normally. Yeah, it is for 1.1%. It has made a big difference. Even directionally, there can be change in the thermal conductivity and all. So there has to be a stringent control of, by mistake, this is 3 here, it should be 13. So these, now, yeah, here, these are the problems and challenges, and here are the solutions. Now, it's become possible to grow very thick CVD film, so grain size is adequately high. Then the fine polishing, as I said, is possible, and this is a new, what shall I say, in kind of idea, and the way to implement is becoming possible. I think I have still to find that out, how they really make it happen. That, but this stringent control of the isotope, it plays a big role. Here itself, I say, because I have not undertaken, I mean, here I have not, I don't plan to do, I don't have slides for electronic applications, etc. Where earlier N-type doping was not really possible, but of late, now I'm seeing last 5 years, there are reports of N-type doping using phosphorus, or wherein the nitrogen and vacancy, they, okay, the CVD diamond, where they have started seeing N-type doping, they grow it on homoepitaxial growth only. They grow it on the diamond. Diamond is in a grown in a particular way also. That is 113 directed diamond, using very stringently controlling the isotope, etc. They are seeing some. They are seeing quite good N-type doping, which is worth following. Okay. SAW devices, they are surface acoustic wave devices. Now diamond is not piezoelectric. It needs some top layer, piezoelectric layer to be, it needs to be used, something like poly zinc oxide. But otherwise, the velocity, sound velocity in diamond is much higher. Quartz 3000 and all and something. Lithium niobate, the most commonly used material for SAW, it's 3488, whereas diamond is 10,000. So there will be drive for getting over the whatever are the, so the okay, are the problems. So how does this high velocity, how does it reflect it practically? We can see that the frequency, the highest frequency, so here the frequency, synchronous frequency, is given by the velocity by 4 times d, where d is the IDT finger spacing. Now for launching the surface acoustic wave, we use IDT type of metallic structure, and because of the high sound velocity, for the same frequency, the IDT finger spacing can be much higher, and so the photolithography or lithography requirements will be less stringent, making, so here it is there, low cost lithography system can be used, which are more reliable and with better yield. Diamond has negative electron affinity. These are the surface reconstructions which happen with hydrogen around, and this is the potential end use. This is a, I think it's a still developing kind of thing. Excuse me, Professor Anuradha Mishra. Hello. But I have noted that you are working. I mean, you are working on this diamond for radiation detectors. You have some. I saw the
One,
reports.
one of my students has done this work in IIT Bombay.
You're right.
So
So then it was very nice to see that.
I was going to talk about it after the talk.
No, you please go ahead, because here as a token, I said, okay, this is for you. So I have downloaded, like
Yeah, so
I have kind
as
of here shown that beam position monitor and made, and this is the way by, yeah, they need, yeah, you will please be telling about this. I'd like to hear about it. And okay, this is again the X-ray with self-standing diamond wafers possible. Because of its hard stiffness, the for the material can be a thin material also can be used as a window, and in which is a better performing. And here we see that now. Okay, I'll come to that. So this is the diamond windows for synchrotron radiation. They have provided a kind of cooling here. I see that copper, and they make it ready to use in a vacuum system. And this is now we'll come to that. Okay, I'll come back to that. Now this, I think there is not enough time, but so whatever I talked till now, like in 90s, the CVD diamond coatings showed enough promise, and around the world there have been continuous development of improving the diamond deposition system, diamond quality, and as we know, there are now a number of coating. I mean, coaters. There are many companies around the world with customized coating and all that is possible. And here, okay, in generally from any new material or new processing technique, for it to go to a pilot plant, these are the various steps which are involved. I think due to lack of time, we'll skip that. I mean, I have generally started calling like seniors like Dr. Arora, or yesterday I talked with Kothari. What have they kind of, with their experience, what they have thought about this change? Because we observe that we need to together, means collectively, look at this process more. What shall I say? Assess like the okay. What I mean is that technology development. I mean, how to expedite? We say that contributing to say national development, or pushing the knowledge frontier and all that. So yeah, it is very nice. It is very nice that with such spirit, the seniors with such spirit, they like it was really worthwhile exploring how to do that. But now we are at a stage that I want to convey to the students to look at this process, find out the tangible ways like of doing it, and be critical about that as well. Okay. Showing these interfaces, how to do teamwork on the interface, where collaborative work is required. About this is about advance, and for the last 10-15 years, this I'm showing Admart's work position. So on, see, generally in R&D institutions, CSI labs and all, technology related knowledge, I mean, that is being developed, and industries where the utilization of that technology to come up with a product and all. So this is not a very linear kind of, that whatever one saw that schematic, it doesn't happen in a linear way. But as far as my work is concerned, I started carrying out projects in the format where for any given kind of the new work that the industry is interested, like using microwave for cold drying or using microwave for glaze firing like CUNY and all. So whatever is the application, to analyze that, I mean, what all does it involve, and and developing the related information. So the project that I used to project, the first part used to be information based development. The other would be some lab scale experimentation related to that or bench scale, and the analysis of that for the company. I was asking now where is physics or what am I doing? Before some few days back, I started asking that question. Then I concluded that it is applied physics. So I went to the net and looked for what is applied physics. So applied physics is the application of physics to solve scientific or engineering problems. It is usually considered to be a bridge or a connection between physics and engineering. And then I remembered, now this schematic I'm showing, I used to put that on my like web page some 10, like more than 10 years back. And so this is the kind of work that admits as